News Radio 540 WDAK. It's the morning show, and Wes Carroll, along with Dr. Shawn Cruzen, joining us this morning from the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. We have a guest on the phone, and this is a big moment, man.
Yeah, this is a great moment. We're very honored to have the next guest we're going to have here on 5:40 a.m. It's Colonel Al Worden from Apollo 15.
Good morning, Colonel.
Morning. Good morning.
How are you doing, sir? We're very glad to have you with us this morning. It's quite an honor to be able to speak to you this morning. On behalf of Columbus State University and the region, I'd like to just welcome you, give you an early welcome to the city of Columbus. You're going to be coming here and joining us for an event commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Challenger, and also just to talk a lot about your experiences as an Apollo astronaut. We're really grateful for your time and for your visit.
I'm happy to be here, but I got a question for you.
Okay, what's that?
Well, I'm a little confused about what to wear. Do I wear my Tommy Bahamas or do I wear my Eskimo parka?
Right now, the Eskimo parka actually might be slightly more appropriate. I don't know if you know this, we've been having a series of kind of ice storms and sleet and nonsense going on here in the South that we're not terribly accustomed to, and it's a little bit chilly out there today, but I think by the time you're going to visit in the next couple of days, I think it's going to warm up. Actually, Wes is the radio guy. Maybe he knows the weather forecast.
Couldn't hurt to wear both, actually, and just wear the parka over the top. I think that way, layers is always the way to go.
No, I take care of it. I was just poking you a little bit. And I'm very pleased, kind of excited to be coming up there.
Well, we're really, really excited to have you coming, and like I said, it's just an honor for not only me, but for the whole Columbus community to welcome you, and we're really looking forward to hear what you have to say in the next couple of days here.
Well, I will be there, and if my voice holds out, I'll talk.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll have the lemon tea standing by.
Yeah.
Listen, can you tell us just a little bit about, and explain to the radio audience just a little bit about what your job was as command module pilot for Apollo 15?
Yeah, sure. I was the command module pilot. There are three people on a flight, three guys on a flight going to the moon. There's the commander. In my case, that was Dave Scott. He is the guy basically who flies the lunar module down to the surface and then back up into lunar orbit. And, of course, he's the overall manager of the entire flight. And then there's the lunar module pilot, who is basically the systems engineer. He doesn't really fly anything. He's there to look over the shoulders of Dave when he's in the lunar module, and Dave and I when we're in the command module. My job as command module pilot was to fly everybody out there, get squared away in lunar orbit, get them in the lunar module, close the hatches, let them undock and go down to the surface. Then I stayed in lunar orbit by myself for 3 days while they were down on the surface.
What was that like? What was
when
that
they come
like?
back, then I fly everybody back home.
What was that like? 3 days just there alone.
Wonderful. Absolutely the best part of the flight.
What sort of things were going through your head while you were there alone?
Oh, that's the funny part of it. Not much. I was so damn busy doing all this science and taking photographs. I photographed about 25% of the moon.
That's
wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah, did a lot of photography. I had quite an extensive array of remote sensors, X-ray, infrared, microwave, to scan the lunar surface, and then I had two cameras. One was a very high resolution camera. As a matter of fact, that camera, it was a ball opticon camera. It had about 1,100 feet of film. And it was the camera that was designed for the original U-2 program back here in the country in the 50s. We were able to carry it because the Air Force had declared it obsolete. It was a fantastic camera. I could take pictures of objects down to about 4 feet. From the 60 miles high I was in lunar orbit.
That's incredible.
Pretty fantastic camera.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I did a lot of personal photography. I carried... of course, we carried the traditional Hasselblads, and on my flight, I also talked NASA into letting me take a small Nikon camera, which was pretty unusual camera because it had a lens that was like 1.01, so like 99.9% of the light got through the lens. Then I carried an Eastman Kodak Ektachrome that was rated at 5,000. Now, when you go into a store and you buy film, you get something like 250, 300, 400, something like that. But I carried film that was 5,000. The speed was 5,000.
That's amazingly sensitive film. That's awesome.
And so, yeah, we could get into all kinds of discussions about what kinds of things there are out there to take pictures of in very, very low light levels. Some pretty amazing things, and I'm sure Shawn's familiar with all these, but I took pictures of the L5, and I took pictures of the Gegenschein, stuff like that. And, Shawn can probably explain all that. But they're very low light level phenomena that we're able to capture on the flight. So that was kind of rewarding because a lot of theories that astronomers and physicists have were sort of proven on the flight.
That's very incredible. That's an amazing contribution of your time up there in orbit.
Yeah, I have to say, and Shawn, you can hang in there with me on this, but there are basically 5 equilibrium points between the Earth and the Moon. They're called L points. 3 of them are on a line between the center of the Earth and the Moon, and 2 are offset about 60 degrees. Two of the L points are basically stable points. In other words, if you were to throw something into one of those points out there, they'd stay there. The forces are such that if they were disturbed, they'd come back into that point. So the idea was that if that's the case, there should be a dust cloud out there. And in fact, it'd be very low light level, and we actually got some pictures of that.
So what do you estimate? These are the Lagrange points that are around the moon. What do you estimate the size of some of the biggest debris that you saw within that little collection?
You can't see size. All you see is kind of a cloud, and you have to understand that with this very, very fast film, I was taking sort of like 5 to 10 second exposures. You can't keep a spacecraft that steady that long, so there's always smear on the picture. So we actually never got any size information. You can just see a cloud out there.
Yeah, so you're basically seeing enough sunlight reflected to verify that stuff is out there and it actually is sitting at that point. So
same way with the Gegenschein.
Yes, that's right.
And Wes, I don't know, what the Gegenschein is or not. I'm sure Shawn does. But the Gegenschein is a ring of small objects, debris left over from the formation of the solar system that's beyond the outer planet. And people have recorded it in the past. If you were to go to the top of the, let's say, the Andes Mountains in South America, go as high as you can get as high in the atmosphere as you can, with a very good telescope, people have been able to see the sun reflected off those small particles out there. And those were some of the pictures we got, too.
I was going to guess either that or a German musical instrument.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
That's a glockenspiel, though, isn't it?
Listen, Colonel Worden, you rode above the most powerful launch vehicle ever built, the Saturn V. That's just an amazing machine. Can you tell us what it was like to lift off in the Saturn V?
That's a common question. There have been too many movies and too many television shows where you see a launch and the guy's face all gets distorted and his cheeks flow back and all that. None of that happens. When you have to understand that we had the largest launch or the heaviest launch in the program. We were about 7 million pounds when we launched, and we had a thrust of about 7.5 million pounds to get us off the pad. Well, in a situation like that, when you lift off very slowly because you only have a little bit of excess thrust. And then as you burn out the fuel, you get lighter and you accelerate. So that at the end of the first stage burnout, we were doing about 4.5 Gs. But the liftoff itself is very, very slow and very smooth. In fact, it's so slow that we actually had to program the launch vehicle to tilt away from the gantry to make sure that if there was a little wind blowing from the south, we didn't get blown into it. It took 12 seconds to pass the gantry. So it's a very, very slow liftoff, no Gs, and then the G-forces build up as you accelerate because you're reducing the weight of the launch vehicle.
Are you experiencing a tremendous sound? Is that thing's lifting off? Is that thing's firing?
No, we got very little sound. You got to understand, we were like 350 feet ahead of the engines, and they're pointed in the other direction. So you don't really hear much when you're launching. There's a certain point in the launch trajectory once you get above the launch pad where you get a little rebound noise where the rocket the noise of the rockets hits the earth and bounces back up. Got a little bit of that, but that didn't last very long. Basically, what we heard was kind of strange stuff. We heard the fuel rushing through the lines. That was about it.
Wow.
And you got to understand, the fuel lines on this thing are 18 inches in diameter, and we burn fuel at the rate of about somewhere around 18,000 pounds per second. So there's a lot of fuel moving through that stage one, and because it's a solid structure, that noise is transmitted through the solid part of the spacecraft up into the, or the launch vehicle up into the spacecraft. So we could hear that the fuel, we could hear the fuel boost pump running. Outside of that, there wasn't a lot of noise. There's a little vibration when we went through what we call max Q, which is where you get the most, the peak of the dynamic pressure on the outside of the spacecraft. We could hear a little bit of creaking and a little shaking when we went through that, but that was about all.
Now, what was it like to be selected as an Apollo astronaut at that time in U.S. history?
Oh, that was a thrill. I applied for the program in December, and they did a paperwork study, and then I think in February we went down to San Antonio for physicals. There were over 800 that applied that were all basically qualified. There were 75 of us who went down to take physicals, and out of that there were 50 left, and those 50 in March, I believe, went down to Houston for interviews and to take some kind of oral and written exams. And then out of that, they picked 19 of us. I'll never forget the phone call I got from Deke Slayton when he got right to the point. I mean, Deke was not a man to mince words. And he said, "Hey, you want to come down and work for me?" What am I supposed to say? No. Yeah, so that got it all started. That was a great day. I walked on air for most of the day. And then I got down to Houston, got in the office, and found that, it wasn't quite what I thought it was.
Did they have you hit the ground running and it was kind of intense from the very beginning?
We sort of hit the ground we're greenies, right? There are lots of older guys that were there, and a lot of them have already made flights, and we weren't good for much when we first got there. I'll never forget walking into Wally Schirra's office. He was my flight commander. And he's sitting behind his desk, and I walked in and introduced myself, and we were chatting about this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know whether you've ever met Wally or not, Shawn.
I have not. I've not had that honor.
Oh, what a fantastic guy. He was one of my best friends, but at the time he was a Navy captain, and I was an Air Force captain. So I let him know that I figured that we're the same rank, and that I didn't really have to respond instantly whenever he told me to do something, because we're sort of peers. Well, there's a vast difference between a Navy captain and an Air Force captain. So next thing I found, I was walking down the hall getting him a cup of coffee. But we became very, very close friends. But that's what it was like. The new guys in the office didn't account for much. Once we got to the office, we were told, and we found out very quickly, and we were told that you're not really an astronaut until you made a flight. So anybody who hadn't made a flight, hey, they did all the drudge work.